Springfield Model 67F 20 gauge pump shotgun. It's amazing how a seemingly insignificant store brand can actually have its roots in an iconic historical example. And let's check out exactly what the origins of this guy really are. Milsurp Garage, Springfield 67F. Originally, we're going back into that whole Savage, Stevens, Springfield, cloudy mess of names. This one's a little bit easier. This will iron it out. You know, I just recently came off this the Springfield 15, Model 15 bolt action 22, single shot bolt action 22 video. I could do so much better on these view-wise if I would throw like the Savage name in there or even Stevens. But I always keep them true, just like this one. I'm going to keep it true to the name and just leave Springfield up there because I think they deserve it. They definitely earn their place. They don't always have to have Savage or Stevens attached to it. But the real origin of this shotgun is the Stevens Model 77. It's where it all started. And Stevens, we're going to go back to where it all started with Stevens. First of all, let's go all the way back there. So Stevens, it's the 520. This was what made Stevens back in, let's see, let's get the date. Why do I not have that ready? So yeah, J. Stevens and Company is a small firearms company founded by Joshua Stevens, W.B. Fay, and James Taylor, not the musician, in 1864. That's quite a while ago, huh? And they were based in Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts. Their most notable achievement was purchasing, marketing, and owning one of John Browning's shotgun designs, the 520 and the 620. The 620 was its later, revamp with the more rounded receiver. But this is like one of the weird Browning designs that sometimes gets lost in the mix because it wasn't a Winchester, it wasn't an FN, it wasn't owned by Remington. You know what I mean? This is a weird one. This is a straight up John Browning invention. It's unique in its own right. This was my riot gun. I have a video back there on it. I have a video on it as the riot gun, and as my conversion to do the opposite of what everybody does. Instead of converting it into a trench or a riot gun, we took the riot gun and we converted it backwards. You see the sling swivel here. There was some contention as to whether or not this thing was a real U.S. marked or real flaming bomb gun, but in the video we kind of break down. I kind of crunch some numbers and come up with where it may have actually come from. Could potentially is real, but at least in this configuration I could use it for trap and it shoots really well. So the 520 was theirs from 1909 to 1939, and they had the 620 from 1927 to 1955. Now here's where Stevens comes in. 1920 Stevens Arms. I'm sorry, this is where Savage comes in. Savage in 1920 purchased Stevens Arms, but they continued to produce firearms under the Stevens brand with Savage as the parent company. Pretty smart, right? Why absorb them? Just kind of like sell it under a different brand, and whatever you're making from that, it's kind of like two companies funneling all the proceeds into one. Pretty great idea. And if one starts doing bad, at least it doesn't kill the whole company. It seems like a pretty smart move. Now, first appearing in 1954 as a long-barreled sporting shotgun, the Stevens Model 77 replaced the 620. So that's where the 77 comes in, replacing the 620. And the design was also licensed by Springfield and by Savage. For the most part, the 77, the Model 30, the Model 67, the Model 69, 79, they're all the same gun. Cosmetic differences related to the finish and stuff like that. But for our purposes here, they would be considered identical. And the Model 77, how is the Model 77 famous? Model 77 is famous because the Stevens Model 77E in 12 gauge, of course, was the most popular shotgun used by the military during Vietnam. And everybody would think, no, Ithaca Model 37, right? Isn't it the Model 12, the Model 10? Nope. To supplement the Ithaca Model 37 riot guns, the government contracted with Stephen Arms Company around 1963 for a riot gun version of its slide-action shotgun designated the M77E. They had 20-inch barrels. They were marked U.S. on the receivers with a small P-proof marks on the barrels and receivers. They were parkerized. The wooden stocks were fitted with rubber butt pads. That was the only military shotgun fitted with a rubber butt pad. Most of the stocks were noticeably shorter than standard U.S. shotgun stocks to accommodate our typically smaller statued South Vietnamese allies. So a lot of these were given to the South Vietnamese to fight, and they specifically wanted the stock small. It was fitted with sling swivels, and you could kind of date them by stuff like what the early examples had the swing swivel on the barrel, and then later ones had it on the magazine plug. There's ways to actually, the collectors of those things really know how to move around date-wise on those things because, without serial numbers or whatever. But this, unlike the Ithaca, this was just a conventional slide-action shotgun with a side ejection. The Ithaca 37 was load through the bottom, eject through the bottom. So with more than 50,000 of these M77E riot guns manufactured, the 77E was the most widely used shotgun of the Vietnam War. And it got a little slack for not being as reliable as the other shotguns that were used. But the whole thing with these things is they made these things in 12 gauge, 16 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge, and 410. Right? The whole gambit, right? The thing about them is that the earlier you got these things, the better. Try and look up some dates here just to get. So the Springfield 67. So the information on that one, this guy right here, Springfield 67 in 1967. So this is a first year for this particular model. In 67, Stevens offered the budget grade pump action Model 67. It was manufactured by Savage, but sold in markets under the Stevens name or the Springfield name. They're indistinguishable from each other. They're probably built on the same exact machinery even. There was also a 69. Trying to remember what the exact difference was with the 69, but I think the 69 was marketed more of like a police shotgun. You know what I mean? It might have been had shorter barrel and been more for police use. It was kind of like made and marketed for a more utilitarian use, while these were more like a sporting shotgun. So I found this one in 20 gauge. It's a 1967. Now, how do we date these things? We come up with some interesting markings on these things. And I have papers like this. I come up with this stuff online. Here's the date codes from 49 to 70. You can use these just from 49 to 70. Then there's other information here on this whole thing where how you could break it down. But from 49 to 70, you could use this letter. And where do you find that letter? Here's the thing. We've been here before. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I'd be able to zoom enough for you to even see that. So right up here, see we have I think it says 13. Is it a 13? Or let's turn it around. Let's go a little closer over here. What does that say? It's like 13U, right? You see that, right? Right there. And yeah, there you go. That's a good shot of it. So there's an oval around it too. That's kind of hard to see. That is the date code, and that U dates us to 1967. And as far as choke goes, here's the choke markings that they used. For some reason, this is what these guys used. They didn't want to write it. They could have just wrote full mod, imp, sil, whatever, how you normally see. But no, they didn't want to do it that way. And right here, we have the... Oh, I never even saw this. There's two of these. There's two of these codes with the U. How interesting is that? It's a 13U there, and there's also a 17U down here. Interesting. Supposedly the number was the inspector, and then the letter was the year. So there's two different inspector marks on here. I only saw this one with the U. I never noticed that one until just now doing the video. Interesting, huh? And there's the two stars for modified choke. And let me tell you, I took this thing to the trap range. You know me, it's all about the trap shooting. That's what I do. I go, I trap shoot. Here's what we come up with. It's light, of course. The 20 gauge is very, very smooth and kind of controllable. You could, if anybody that shot a 20 gauge, something psychological where you just know, not that a 12 gauge really beats me up. I could shoot any of these 12 gauges, shoot and trap. I do 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 8 rounds. Even if my shoulder starts to get sore after a while, it's barely noticeable when I'm actually out there shooting. I pretty much absorb 12 gauge trap shooting like it's nothing. But it's nice to have the 20 gauge. It's like a very mellow kind of, psychologically, it's not going to pound you as hard. And somehow that makes the shooting a little bit more pleasant. That even before you pull the trigger, it's going to be nice and smooth. And I did really well with it. I wanted to shoot 2 rounds with it. I only got this 1 round in. And shot a 20. And now at this range, they have this whole new system where it used to be like you just bought tickets and you gave them to the puller. And now you get a card and they load the card with the birds. So if you get 4 games, they put 100 birds on the card. And for some reason, on my 4th game, when I went up there on my 4th game, which would have been the 2nd round that I videoed with this gun, he's like, it's empty. There's nothing. I guess they made a mistake at the office when I bought the card. And once I pack up and I go back to the office, I'm not going to add anything and then go back there again. I was out. So I feel like I could have even bettered the 20 on my next round. But I don't know. We'll see next time. If I remember, I'll give you a report. Let's show you some more shooting footage on the way out. But let's check out. I got these nice 20 gauge snap caps that I bought a while ago. These are kind of cool. So I could show you. This is, again, these were always known as being problematic. You'll hear people say they have issues with these things, but to be honest with you, these issues are, the newer it gets, the worse they are. And being that this is a first year for this particular model, forget about these things. It's as reliable, as solid feeling as any Mossberg or anything, any Remington 870, any Model 12. I'm sorry, it just is. I know a lot of people wouldn't believe that, but it does have just the single action bar. But there's something about, I think, just the quality really fell off with these as time went by. And as long as you got one of these older ones, there were just no issues like that. These things don't miss a beat when they're older. That's just the bottom line. So use these date codes wisely. Stay away from any newer ones. When I say newer, I'm talking about into the these. When did they make these? Somewhere I saw in my paperwork here when they stopped, but everything got all discombobulated already. Ceased production. The 67 and 69 pump action shotguns ceased production in 1989. So that's a while. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. When you get into the 80s with these things, that's where you hear all the stories about how junky and how horrible they are. But me, I'm dropping rounds in, I'm shooting, I'm ejecting, I'm not having a problem. I'm as solid as can be. And as far as I can tell, it does not slam fire. I tried it, it felt kind of weird. Like I don't know if I like slammed the pump home that I'd break something in the trigger group. I don't know. I don't want to mess around. But yeah, like what else? There was something else and I can't remember now. Yeah. Tight action bar. Oh, I wanted to just get in and show you some of the writings on it. There's some of these blemishes, these rusty like blemishes on this guy. And it is what it is. I mean, I just leave it all. That's it. That's what it's going to have, and I just leave it. I don't want to mess with it. Proof tested for 20 gauge 3-inch chamber. So that's kind of nice. The only 20 gauge stuff that you see 3 inches, like, that bismuth stuff and all this like crazy kind of exotic ammo. Springfield Model 67F, Savage Arms, Westfield, Massachusetts. And yep, some stamping, some markings. That's about it. I don't know. Also, the F. Maybe somebody knows. You could put in the comments. I don't know what the A, B, C, D, E stuff is, but I know as they change it through the years and as they do things or different models, maybe, because this was the first year for the 67. So how could it be up to F already? I think it's just maybe F was the 20 gauge. You know what I mean? And maybe the different letters designated different ones. I mean, I think they did make it in every gauge. So if there's an A, B, C, D, E, F, that would be 12, 20, 16, 28, 4, 10. I guess that's only 5. But then maybe different chambers. Maybe there was a 2.5-inch chamber, and that was the E model, not the F model. I mean, I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know. Takedown, I would take it down for you. I did it to clean it, and I'm not doing it again. It's this screw and then this pin. This pin was a problem. I really had to pound it out. It's like that when you get guns that were hardly ever shot. This thing was like getting a brand new one. Even though it has these blemishes, it's very, very unfired. You could just tell it's a very tight gun, and it doesn't look like it's had much use in its day. See, dual claw extractors in there. They're not fooling around. That extractor is not fooling around. Yeah, they're not playing games with this thing. This bolt felt like a block of steel. It felt like it was built out of something like this. You know what I'm saying? That's what it felt like. And I don't have a newer one to compare it to, but it felt solid. And after these 2 pins are out, the trigger group pulls out, and you take the buttstock off, long screwdriver with the long screw out, and then you pop the bolt out the back. It's nice and simple. It was really cool the way it went out, the way it came apart and went together. I was sad that I just didn't have the ability right then and there to do the video, because I knew the way I took that pin out, I knew I was like, I'm not banging that out again. You could even see it, it blemished it there, and maybe even on this side. Not so much, but man, it really had to be, it really had to be pounded out of there with a, with like a pin, a punch, and a hammer, and getting it in wasn't even easy. Very tight, and I wanted to stay that way. Once is enough. I don't think I'll ever have to take it apart fully and completely like that again. But if you need to do it to yours, it's simple. It's simple enough. Just these two, trigger group, buttstock, bolt comes out the back, and then just regular. This looks the same as every other. Take the magazine apart. It's nice to clean it. It was filthy. It was totally cosmoline grease. Looked like maybe even the dried up crappy assembly grease was even on it. Who knows? And yeah, so that's it. I'm telling you, it was a blast shooting trap with it. I don't get 20s with 20 gauges that often. I really don't. I'm usually somewhere in the teens with the 20 gauges. I don't really do well with them. But this thing, it pointed well. And what is it again? Let me got my nomenclature like in the book. What do I have for this thing again? So it's it's 3-inch chamber, 28-inch barrel, modified choke. Capacity is 4+1. Yeah, that's it. 28-inch barrel for a 20 gauge. That's great. That's more than enough. Look at that. Ooh, yeah, that seems to go on forever. Polished the bead with my jewelry rag, and went at it. Have at it. It was a really, really nice shooter. Had a good time with it. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. They demonetized my last video on the, what was it? What was the last video? Let me see, I got it right here. Forgot myself. It was the 22, the 73Y. Yeah, with the firing pin whole thing. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a lot of work right there. It was tough to put that together in a video because I did have a ton of footage, and it's hard to do a video when you're actually working on something for the first time. It's not like you took it apart, you saw it was wrong, you plan a video, you go back. I'm like going in there. I knew it had a broken firing pin, but I went in there for the first time to take the firing pin out of its staking spot, and it's like, I don't, just for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna like botch the job. And I work methodically and slow, and I really look at everything carefully, and it's like a lot of editing out a lot of that downtime. But sometimes then you don't want to edit out a lot of that downtime. The fact of me looking at it and analyzing it, I kind of feel like you're looking and analyzing at the same time. And I don't know, that's kind of like what the video is about. So a lot of times I feel weird even taking that kind of stuff out and cutting it up. I think with that one, I left it more unedited than usual. So if it bored you a little bit, I'm sorry. You could always skip ahead. But that was a lot of work, and it was a real sense of accomplishment to get that thing going. And it just kind of sucks that YouTube seems to think that that's modification, that that's not maintenance. I mean, come on, that's not fixing a broken firing pin is maintenance. It's a replaceable part. It's made to come out and be replaced for a reason. They're a wear item. And YouTube does allow disassembly and reassembly, showing basic maintenance. I think that that's basic maintenance. They haven't demonetized the video of mine in a long time, but I guess somebody they demonetized it like just automatically. It got demonetized by its algorithm, I guess. So something that maybe there's like AI computers watching the videos. And then I asked for a human review, and for the most part, the human reviews usually come back and side in my favor. But this time, they didn't. And demonetization doesn't bother me as far as the money side of it goes. I don't have near enough viewers to be worried about that. What happens with the demonetization is that they're in business to make money. And if your video cannot be monetized, they don't put it in people's feeds. You would think that my subscribers, I get most of my views from my subscribers. Not so. I get maybe 80 to 90% of my views are just from random YouTube searching or just for suggestions. YouTube will suggest it to people who are searching for firearm stuff. And if they're not going to make money off the video, they're not going to suggest it to anybody. So those videos usually get 1/10 the hits, the exposure, let's say, that the monetized videos get. So that's what bothers me, is that that's a lot of work and pretty cool video on how to transform a little youth Model 22 like that, and it doesn't get out there. So check it out. Hopefully, this one gets monetized and it gets out there. Since I'm not taking it apart, it shouldn't be a problem. But I promise you, I would take it apart and not even care if I wasn't worried about this pin. But you know me, I'll tear them apart if I have to. And but now I could get on here and tell you, if you haven't heard about that video, it's on there. Go back. We did some rapid fire. We got the FN 1949 up there also. I got some free time now, and I'm going to be rolling, and might only wait a couple of days and come out with the next one. So stay tuned. Thanks to the new subscribers. Appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, get in here. And it's going to be a really nice fall. We're going to do some trap shooting. I'm going to have some other guns out there at the trap range. We're going to check out some handguns, some modern handguns, older handguns, 22s. We got it all. Air guns. We even got an air gun to show you, and not just any air gun. I'm not talking about like some like a crappy air gun. I'm talking about quality, awesome air gun that I picked up. We're going to do that too. We're going to cover all bases. And I'll see you all soon. Later.
Alrighty, let's go. Safety's on, rounds loaded. Let's have some fun.
The fuck?